Are you still feeling the effects of your original diagnosis of COVID? Have you missed any work still? Have you again gotten COVID or anything like COVID, a virus or something to that effect that is keeping you from enjoying the life that you want to live? Well, today in the classroom, we're very fortunate that we have and I'm very grateful that we have world-renowned Dr. Jacob Teitelbaum, MD, and he is an expert in not only fibromyalgia, he's written 12 books, and his latest one is You Can Heal from Long COVID. So today, he is going to be in the classroom and our teacher, and he will be teaching us how we can be part of the solution when it comes to ridding these symptoms that might be controlling many of us.
And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here waiting for you.
Hi, my name is Lily McDermott, and I am a certified life coach and the host of the Lillian McDermott radio show. I am also a certified holistic cancer coach. And if this is your first time in the classroom, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide ways to heal naturally, and it is my mission in life to make responsibility, awareness, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friend, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Well, as you know, Dr. Jacob Teitelbaum is a special guest in the classroom, and anytime he comes on, I I've got my pencil and pen, which I suggest you do too. My paper and pencil and pen, whatever it is to erase whatever, because things have changed. And every time he comes on, he gives us an update. And I remember back in 2021, and the class is called Persistent COVID Symptoms and Solutions. He came on and he was sharing what we knew at the time, but what has changed? What has changed is now he's written another book, and it's called You Can Heal Cancer from Long COVID. And Dr. Jacob Teitelbaum is here to share some information how it could help us as we go into cold and flu season, or if we're into cold and flu season. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Dr. Jacob Teitelbaum is here to do just that. Welcome to the classroom, Dr. Teitelbaum. How are you?
Aloha, everybody from the big island of Hawaii, where I live. And I'm really happy today. And you mentioned the book was You Can Heal Cancer from Long COVID. It's not cancer.
Oh, did I
It's
say
just you can
cancer?
heal.
Oh my goodness.
Being a cancer
Should we
coach.
edit
Yep, heads up.
that?
No.
I'm glad you clarified it.
So you can heal from long COVID. So here's the thing. For whether you have any persistent symptoms from long COVID or whether you just have fatigue, brain fog, uh, achiness, widespread pain, or trouble sleeping, any of these things, we are going to teach you what's causing it and how to make it go away. And it's something that you can do on your own in many cases. It's not that hard to do. It's just information is knowledge. So especially for those with long COVID, you are starting to realize that the medical profession is taking the same tack it did with CFS and fibromyalgia, where 30 years later, they have nothing useful, even though it's totally treatable. You go to the doctors, I don't know
Mm,
what's wrong with you, you're crazy, and there's nothing for it.
yeah.
So there's no need. It's going to take the same 30 years for long COVID. They're showing all the signs for doing the same thing. They're all good people. God bless them. Um, but it's going to be up to you to get yourself well. And I'm going to show you how.
Yes, and I really appreciate that. And for those of you, my listening and viewing friends, just know that there is going to be some conversation that is going to air on YouTube and Facebook. But we're going to have a bonus with Dr. Teitelbaum. I don't want him to feel that he can't say some of the things that he wants to say, but I want to be able to all of you know that there's going to be a bonus that will be only on BitChute. It'll be only on BitChute and maybe on Odyssey, but primarily it'll be on BitChute. So just know that we will put all the solutions and talk about solutions that are not approved necessarily by the FDA or the the media, the mainstream media, which has us believe that there are certain things you can and cannot do. So we will have that conversation when we're done. So make sure you share this conversation. This is a way that you can help the classroom grow. Like us, follow us, put emojis, because we need this information out there. So Dr. Teitelbaum, as you started diving into COVID, I think you saw a parallel with fibromyalgia, is what I'm getting from you. And we talked about that back in 2021. So let's talk about some of the things that are new today that you didn't know then, that you know now. Also, later on in the process, I would love to talk about people that have Epstein-Barr or other viruses that might be commingling with the COVID virus, and we just need to isolate what it is. So let's try to understand, what is COVID? What are the symptoms from COVID, so that we understand what we can do next?
So starting with a couple of quick basics. Basically, long COVID is simply one of numerous forms of post-viral chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. This is a critical point because it opens up almost 50 years and thousands of research studies that apply to long COVID and can help people to get better. So they just came out with a new definition of long COVID. It is one of the most useless medical definitions I've ever seen in my life. It is any symptom that persists after COVID for more than a couple months. It's like, that's like saying we are going to come up with a diagnosis of car crash disease, not just car crash disease, electric car crash disease. And any treatment we do, whether you have a skull fracture, a sprained toe, or a bloody nose, we're going to give you the same treatment for car crash disease or electric. No, you've got to separate them out. They're not doing that. So they made this very politically correct definition that is utterly useless for research. It will be 30 years before they do useful research that helps people. But I'm going to say again, tired, achy, brain fog, can't sleep, you've got this process. There are hundreds of other symptoms that go with it. We can talk about some of those. But if you have those core symptoms, you have, and it started after COVID, you got long COVID, you can get well. It didn't start after COVID, you just have CFS or fibromyalgia, also very treatable.
Interesting. Interesting. Now, let's learn some of the statistics. What have you learned from the fact that people, COVID has been around for a long time? And I kind of in tongue in cheek would say, since COVID happened, there's no such thing as the flu, there's no such thing as cancer, there's no such thing as, any other disease other than COVID. So COVID became our main priority. What have we learned about COVID since then, that you can share today that might be different than when you were with me when we recorded the class on long haul COVID back in 2021?
Well, remarkably, the government allocated $1.25 billion as opposed to the usual 12 million. I mean, it's like a hundredfold more for long COVID, which promptly got wasted with absolutely no useful clinical information. They realized it's in their wisdom, they know we don't have to have anybody with any experience or knowledge in this disease. We can give the money to whoever we want, even if they know nothing. So, but what do we know? We know that low-dose naltrexone seems to be helpful, but they did a study on low-dose naltrexone, and most physicians know that up to 3 milligrams is the optimal dose. You go to 4.5 milligrams, you lose effectiveness. You go over 5 milligrams, it doesn't work. So for some reason, they picked a 6 milligram dose known not to work for the study. Boggles the mind.
It
But
does. Isn't that interesting? They
it
do
just,
that just about with anything that they don't want to control, because 99% of all scientists agree with whoever's paying for the study.
well, the study, let me give a little number for those, just to give some background. I know it's off topic a bit. Um, in medicine, we would not dream of publishing and doing research that's not randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled study. Why? Because that affects the validity of the study by 60%, 30% for the randomization and placebo for the other 30%. So most researchers and journals say, oh my God, no, it's a 60% loss of effectiveness and knowing. Um, who pays for the study? If it's a large pharmaceutical study, affects it by the validity by 2,200%, not 60%, 2,200%, which means that virtually every study paid for by the industry is a fiction. And there's not to say that none of the stuff works, it's just to say that the studies are not valid. And the journals who are paid for, you'll take a look at the advertising, no Lexuses, no convertibles, no golf clubs. It's all pharmaceutical industry. It's just like when you pay a politician. I'm not paying, pay a, what am I thinking? When you give a campaign contribution to a politician.
You know, I just made a decision. This
Mhm.
whole entire class is going to go into BitChute. So say whatever you want to say. We're going to just have
Okay.
everybody go to BitChute. Yeah.
Okay, fine. So anyways, or you can even do a separate show just for this and start over and do
No, we can do.
okay,
We
the
can do.
COVID. So understand the doctors, all of them, they're all good, well-meaning people. But you if you if you look at most large institutions these days, they are corrupt. It's the old saying, you cut into an institute or a rotten institution, out fall good people. The people are good. The institutions, once big money is involved, becomes corrupt. Um, so this is what we're seeing. The industry is preventing anything that's cheap from the information getting out, because where it used to be their main approach was to simply ignore. Six companies control 90% of media, so they could control, what they talk about. They just wouldn't talk about things that are low cost. But with the big money of COVID, they seem to switch gears to first ignore things, and then, but once they're starting to get public awareness, actively attack any treatments, prescription or natural, that are cheap, to keep a space for the expensive medications to come into. Um, so, as Gandhi put it very well, when you had the David and Goliath thing of him fighting the English Empire. He said, first they ignore you, then they make fun of you, then they attack you, and then you win. It's the same playbook that's going on now.
Yeah. Yeah. So when it comes to COVID and some of the things that you've learned today, um, which which when you're talking about methotrexone and you're saying up to 3% is great, anything
Up to three
above
milligrams for the low dose naltrexone.
milligrams, naltrexone.
And you can email me for my email address is fatigue, DOC, fatigue doc at gmail.com.
Yeah.
You can ask for the LDN, which is low dose naltrexone information sheets. You can ask for the long COVID information sheets, and I'll send you the key ones for that. If you have a lot of sensitivities, we'll talk about that today. You can ask me for the sensitivities information sheet. Um, and we'll talk about a new treatment that is just remarkable. I've not talked about that in the media yet. This is the first place I'm bringing in that area, and I did talk about it in my newsletter, and people are going, "Wow," because
Well,
it is.
what do you use? What do you typically use naltrexone for?
Naltrexone, classically, if you go to most doctors and say naltrexone, they'll think, well, you're a drug addict. You give people who are overdosing on narcotics naltrexone
Oh,
because it
okay.
blocks the effect of the codeine or the morphine. And people who are not breathing from a drug overdose, they wake
Mhm.
wide awake and in withdrawal.
Wow.
Totally blocks it at 200 milligrams, 50 milligrams. But what they're finding is it's a remarkable medication that at 3 milligrams a day or less, and even 4 milligrams, 4.5 milligrams, depending on the weight, I'll give 3 to 4.5. After about 2 months, it there's a process in the brain. Let's just go into this now.
Yeah. Good.
One of the understandings we're getting since the last show is that two key cells in the brain, two key types of areas, are being affected, and actually more than that. But one is called microglial activation. The microglial cells, these are like the gardener cells in the brain. They're kind of mild-mannered. You can think of them chewing on a hayseed with a straw hat, just tending the garden and fertilizing the brain cells and taking care of what it needs. Um, but when it senses that there's some attack, like say it sees some weeds or bugs that don't belong there, it suddenly pours out this like, you know, attack mode. Um, but what it also does is it puts out this kind of a superhero molecule that it's like the first response in the body. It's kind of like, if you have a fire, the firemen come or the policemen come. These are the first responders for emergent situations the body needs to help the healing process. Um, one of the key molecules that do this in the brain is called PEA, or for those who like the big word, palmitoyl ethanol amide. Um, Now, for years we've known about this, but we couldn't get good absorption. We tried to micronize it. We tried all kinds of things. Helped a little bit. Um, but there's a new approach using what's called gamma-zorb, which is a natural compound that the pharmaceutical industries and the natural health industry is starting to use to increase the absorption of things like curcumin, although that they're using more actually, the curcumin oil, turmeric oil, but things like ginseng, things like that are difficult to absorb. Um, and we're seeing remarkable responses. I mean, I see clinically, I can feel it myself when I take these things. So suddenly the PEA, all of these studies have become useful. So what does it do? Our body is making these, first line helpers, these firemen and superheroes to come out and heal the brain and heal the body. But when it can't make enough, the structures start burning. And you'll see brain fog, you see inflammation of the brain called microglial activation, but also the cells that cause sensitivity, histamine release, called mast cell activation. Those go on overdrive from the same thing. It's when they can't make enough of the PEA.
Is that MAST?
Yeah,
Like which when your body is like you have mold and you've that's been affected you, the mast cell, is that the same thing?
it's what when you get sensitivity symptoms to all
Yes.
kinds of different
Yeah, like
things.
multiple
That,
chemical sensitivities and things like that.
yes, that's mast cell activation.
Yeah, okay,
That's
perfect.
doing
I
that.
just want to make sure
And
that this is what I understood. Okay, go ahead.
yes, and what's new is that the deficiency of the same molecule, the PEA, is causing both. This is a key missing link. If you have sensitive to everything, but it's different things on different days, and you also have the brain fog and the overall fibromyalgia process. So you have chronic pain, you have things like that. You have microglial activation, you have brain inflammation. Basically, you have this process. The PEA, bam,
Yes,
this guy right over here, but the
Terry
brand
Nitro.
is critical. It's the Terry Naturally PEA healthy inflammation response. Do at bedtime. I recommend people get 3 bottles, which is a 3-month supply, because it takes 2 to 3 months to start working. But the effects, study after study after study, showing that the effects are dramatic. It does the same thing the low-dose naltrexone does, which has been a key player in fibromyalgia and long COVID in terms of its
Wow.
benefits. Um, and it also settles down mast cell activation syndrome, and then it's doing a bunch of other things. So um, this is a key new player. And again, I will have more data in 3 months.
If in that it'll be great. We mean to have you back after 3 months, but so let me go further. Let me dive deeper. This PEA, can it be used for people if they have sleep deprivation or maybe they can't fall asleep or so you're talking about you use this PEA when there's inflammation in the body and that inflammation is caused by outside sources, whether it's a virus or mold or fibromyalgia, Epstein-Barr.
Anytime you have chronic fatigue or chronic pain or insomnia, think PEA. Even dementia, if you have neurologic disorders, This is the only molecule I've seen that in the studies is consistently helping new brain cells to grow. And that's why we mentioned briefly in people with a stroke, in people with dementia. Nothing, I mean, these are things that are preventable, but once the damage hits, there hasn't been a lot that we can do. The PEA is now offering help for that. This is a very powerful new tool. This is something, and now that we can absorb it because of the gamma absorb, it's become very exciting.
Yes, yes. Okay, so with that in mind, my mind is going 100 miles an hour right now. So will the PEA help with um, remove, because you're now reducing inflammation, will it help settle whatever it is that you're taking it for? Or is that just like a patch, a temporary patch to just help with the inflammation?
Well, here's the thing: the LDN, the low-dose naltrexone, historically only worked as long as you took it, unless you treated the underlying cause of the problems with the S.H.I.N.E protocol. If you optimize sleep, hormones, address other infections that are still hiding there, gave nutritional support and a little bit of exercise to prevent deconditioning, then you put out the fire, you restored healthy balance, and you can stop the low-dose naltrexone and all these other things. The PEA, again, it settles down the mast cell activation. It settles down the microglial activation. My suspicion is that people probably will need to take it until they treat the root causes of the issue. Not that hard to do.
When it comes to this PEA, what it does is that it reduces inflammation. What is PEA? You had mentioned that it is a substance, but where does it come from? Where does that substance come from? Is it a plant? Is it a
It's made by the body itself. It's made in the brain cells. It's made in most of the cells in the body, but it's especially used in brain repair. And when the brain gets a message that there's problems elsewhere in the body, it pumps it out
yeah,
to the
yeah.
body. It's kind of like the superhero molecule. It's really quite cool.
Oh,
It's
interested.
it's a
I'm
mix
looking
of
for
a fat and a water soluble, so it can get into most anywhere that it's needed.
interesting.
Mm.
Okay, so with that in mind, why is it that some people get long COVID, or long haulers COVID, whatever people want to call it, and other people don't. They get it, they don't get it, and they're done with it within a short period of time. Some people have symptoms, some people don't have symptoms, but yet they're being told that they have it. So
Mhm.
what can we do to prevent, like if you get COVID or somebody exposes you, to not even get it? And then if you do
Mhm.
get it, what can help you get through it with the most mild symptoms? What can you do ahead of time to prevent it?
Absolutely. So here's the thing that doctors don't talk about much.
Mm.
It's not the disease, it's how susceptible you are to
Correct.
the disease.
Terrain.
So if you have a house with 12 people living in it, and one person comes in and gets COVID, has COVID, and is in the household, 1/6 of the people in the household will get COVID. So two of the people will catch it, 10 won't. Why? So basic, simple things. Number one, hydration. Our immune system, we have different parts. It's like Army, Air Force, Marines, Navy. We have different parts of our immune system. And the first responder is on the moist membranes, the nose, the mouth, the lungs, the gut. These are the first places that the virus comes in contact with our body. So our Navy, the IgA system, is the first part that needs to take care of it. Our Navy works really poorly in dry dock. If you are dehydrated, these molecules can't get there and do their job. So you're wide open to the attack. So drink water, not soda. Soda will suppress your immune system from the sugar. But drink water, drink tea, stay hydrated. Number two, get sleep. Sleep recharges your immune system. Number three, take a good multivitamin. I like Clinical Essentials, 2 tablets a day. That's what I take myself. You want to have good levels of zinc. Um, you want the vitamin A. There's many key nutrients that are critical for immune function. And number four is to decrease stresses, such as newscasts, which are not news. They're basically meant to scare people to death, make them hate each other and cause adrenal fatigue. So for those of you who get hangry, get irritable when hungry, that is adrenal stress handler gland fatigue. And your doctor will say, well, it's not low enough to kill you, so it doesn't exist. I mean, there's really literally nothing. Its normal levels are like 18 for the morning cortisol. It has to be under 6, at which point it can kill you. If you're 6.1, no problem. You're in the normal range. 5.9, oh God, get you in the hospital, you know. And if I do 2 tests on the same person on the same tube of blood, they'll usually vary by 4 points. Testing machine's not that accurate. So 6.1, even though you're bedridden, no problem. 5.9, lethal. Anyway, we have problems in medicine and how we
Yeah,
look at
we
things
do.
sometimes.
We do. We do.
So the simplest test is, do you get irritable when hungry? Do you get angry? If you do, I treat for adrenal fatigue. I use something called Adrenaplex, very simple supplement, one each morning. The low adrenal is associated with getting everything that comes by and having it take forever to go away. If that sounds like you, treat the adrenal, treat the multivitamin, get your sleep, stay hydrated, and you'll come back and say, oh my God, I went through the whole season. Everybody was sick. I didn't get anything.
I know, I hear about that. And so we're talking terrain here. So when it comes to, you know, because of COVID, ever since COVID happened, anytime you get a cold or a cough or something like that, oh, you got COVID, oh, you got COVID. What are some of the tools that somebody can use to rule out COVID? And if you have COVID, is it different than a cold?
COVID is one of many viruses. It does have different things in that it can attack different organs. Um, so in many ways, it's like Epstein-Barr and numerous other infections. It's not a death sentence. You know, the vast majority of people get COVID, 99+%
Hmm.
do just fine. In children, I think it's 1 in 4 million cases will die from the COVID, which means they're more likely to die from having a TV set fall on them or curtains fall on them, just to put it in perspective. Um, so what can you do if you get a bug? First of all, it takes 2 days for the test to turn positive. So you may want to, that's why they say repeat the test after a couple days. I start with a ViraPro. I rest, I hydrate, and take the good multivitamin. ViraPro, which is a mix of elderberry and optimal levels of the key nutrients, is wonderful. And that's what I have on hand and take when I get that. But if I'm thinking that I may have long COVID, even if the test isn't positive, there's a wonderful old diabetes medicine. And it's medicine, so some of the mainstream media actually, and this was a journal, I think Lancet or British Medical Journal, I have to look again, large study, 1,000 people. They found that if you gave metformin in the first 4 days of the infection, you decreased the risk of long COVID by about 63%. It's a lot.
Why would that be? What would it, what do you believe in your research and your knowledge for of medicine that would that would be so? Because metformin has been used for off-label use, it's off-label use for, different things, but it could also be very dangerous. So,
Oh, it's not
um,
dangerous.
no?
No,
Okay.
no, 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 no.
So
It's an incredibly safe medication. Main problem is if you start the dose too quick, you may get nausea or diarrhea.
that's it.
So
Okay.
you want to start, that's it. The
So there are
conservative
no
lactic
other side
acid
effects to
doses.
metformin if you take
B12
metformin.
deficiency with long-term chronic use.
Okay.
Diabetics who take it for years need to be on a multivitamin or they will get B12 deficiency and the doctor will blame their nerve damage on the diabetes when it's coming from the B12 deficiency. You take a good multivitamin, it's a non-issue. It's an
Wow.
incredibly safe medication. I can send an information sheet for
Yeah,
those of you who want, especially those of you who have a history of CFS or fibromyalgia, who may be more likely to flare from the COVID infection, to ask a doctor if you can have it on hand, and just ask for the metformin information sheet, and it'll have the link to the study, so you can show that study to your doctor. So you can go, oh, okay, and it tells how to dose it and the whole thing. Again, massive, massive decrease. So there was a light blip in the media talking about it, and then it suddenly disappeared.
Yeah, like ivermectin,
Okay.
hydroxychloroquine. So how does ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine compare to metformin, for example?
Okay. The ivermectin doesn't prevent long COVID. It just keeps you less likely to die. I think my reading of the data is that it decreases death risk by 30 to 70%. What happened when you see people in the science industry, notice I say industry, who are coming along and saying there is no evidence that ivermectin works. Here's Let me unpack that statement. What that means. What they're saying is that there's no study that had a statistical probability of over 95% probability. Why? Because when they first did the studies, they said, well, let's have the outcome be how many people die. Need big studies, and they use the NIH data that this percent of people will die, and that's how many people they put in the study to make it statistically significant. That data was totally false. Way less people died. So it, it did what's called underpowering the study. The bottom line is that the study showed 30 to 70% less deaths, but because of the misinformation from the NIH and CDC, I'm not saying it was on purpose, but the drug companies, pharmaceutical studies seem to use different data when they power their study. I don't know why or how, um, but ivermectin works. Now, it also works for long COVID, and it also works, in my experience, for post-vaccine long COVID, which we see. And when I give the
Metformin,
ivermectin,
what strength of metformin? I think that you've got a lot of people that are perking up right now going, wait a minute, I may have, because there's a lot of vaccine remorse, people who felt that they had to if they wanted to travel, if they wanted to keep their job, and now they're having a lot of remorse. And I always say, listen, remorse and that pain that you feel that you may have made a
okay,
mistake is worse than actually doing what you did. So let's find solutions for you.
unless you
So
want to drive looking in your rearview mirror, which is what remorse is,
that's right.
look
That's right.
forward because you can get where you want to go looking forward. I'll tell
Okay.
you, very little of what you have as listeners from COVID can't be helped. Most of it can't be helped. The lack of effective teaching is because the treatments are cheap. So doctors don't hear about them. They want to know about them. But what they're taught is there's nothing yet. Anybody who says anything can help is like, wow, get all red. See, I'm getting my face all red. It's just perfect for this, for the look. So the, when I have acute COVID, when I had COVID, it was a breeze. I went to bed, had my iced tea and my Kindle. I took my ivermectin and the dose that I use for about 200 pounds. It's about um, 24 milligrams a day for
For
5 days.
metformin or ivermectin?
Ivermectin.
Ivermectin.
Okay.
24,
Um,
20,
the,
200
the
milligrams?
it's 12.
Oh, sorry, 12.
It's
Okay.
two. If you're under 150 pounds or 140, I'll usually give people 12 milligrams a day. If they're over 140 pounds, I'll go with 24 milligrams a day, and you can go in between. It's hard to get from the pharmacy and from your doctor because it was so politicized. They do have online places, but you don't want to wait 10 days for it to come in the mail. So it's reasonable to have on hand. Um, some
What is the dose for metformin? Because I want, if
metformin, I usually give, this is all on the information sheet. I usually give 250 milligrams to 500 milligrams the first day. If that's okay and the stomach's no problem, I'll go up to the 500 milligrams the next day or 500 twice a day. Depends how queasy people are just from the disease itself. Then I'll take it up to the 3 tablets a day and leave it there for 14 days.
wow.
But usually, I don't think you really need it more than 7 to 8 days.
Yeah.
But in the study, they gave it 14 days.
But
So
metformin, you said that if you take it within the first
4 days.
4 days, then it
It
just
decreases 63 to 67%. If you
that's
take it
huge.
within 5 to 6 days, you're still at about 40 to 50% decrease.
Yes, yes. And so with that in mind, that is incredible
Mhm,
information.
mhm.
Right there, those two pieces of information for people that are suffering and feel that they are suffering in silence and nobody is able to help them. There, nobody understands all these migrating pains or why you can't get out of bed. It'd be great to maybe explore this. And we'll talk with Dr. Teitelbaum in a little bit about, if this is something that he could write prescription to or whatever, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But for now, I want to encourage you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com. Now, I know that this we at first we had great intentions to show this class in Facebook and YouTube and all those wonderful mainstream media, social media sites, but I wanted Dr. Teitelbaum to give us all the information without any censorship or restriction. So you're going to have to go to my BitChute account. And so when you go to whenyouneedafriend.com, you'll have a BitChute link and you can just click on it when you go to past shows or we don't do lives from BitChute, but you can certainly watch it over and over and over again because it'll be uploaded shortly after the class is released. So just check it out. But while you're at whenyouneedafriend.com, please subscribe to the website. That way you'll have the information of who's going to be in the class. And if you are a subscriber, you already have Dr. Teitelbaum's information. All you have to do is click on his name and it'll take you to his site where he has some of these products that you can purchase from him. So please go there and let's start our journey together as far as whenyouneedafriend.com. And then like me and follow me on all social media. Remember that by sharing this video, you help the class grow. So what you will see in Facebook and YouTube will be like a recap of today's class. And so share that. Let people know that they can find the rest of the information here at BitChute or Odyssey. I will decide whether or not Odyssey, but at least you can go to BitChute. And so while you are at whenyouneedafriend.com, you can check out my sponsors, support them the way that they're supporting the classroom. And you can also become an enrolled student in the classroom, whether it's your time, your talent, your treasure, to help out with the cost of the class. And another way that you can help is you go to my Shop Now bag, and in my Shop Now bag, you will find Lilly approved products. Some of them are affiliates and some of them are not. Some of them are just for me to share this information because I feel it's so important that you be pain-free naturally or whatever I can do to help you help yourself. That's what we're here for. We're here to help each other out. And that's why this information is so important. So when you go to whenyouneedafriend.com, figure out ways that you can support the classroom so that we can continue bringing this information to you. Because since COVID, by the way, it's been 75 classes that have been removed from YouTube. And these are classes that were perfectly fine in 2018, in 2019. But because we used, the word holistic or the word cancer or the word COVID, now somehow they have to screen to make sure that everybody's saying the same thing. Well, you know better. And so I hope that you will share this information, share whenyouneedafriend.com, give generously, and help us continue stay on the air. Today we have Dr. Jacob Teitelbaum, who's in the classroom, and he could be anywhere else. He is in Hawaii. He gets up early to be in this classroom. And so I want to encourage you to support Dr. Teitelbaum. You can go to you can send him an email at fatigue doc at gmail.com, or you can go to endfatigue.com and the information will be there. You can reach out to me, and Dr. Teitelbaum is going to send me some of the doses and some of the information that we discussed today. But I know that Dr. Teitelbaum has other places where you can go to, like A to Z information that you can go to his app to learn how to look at some of the symptoms that you have and look at what you can do to help yourself. You also have your book and Freedom from Fatigue to Fantastic, and the end of how to heal from long COVID. Can you share a little bit about your website and why people should go to your website, Dr. Teitelbaum?
Uh, Thank you, Lillian. Again, for information, The website is
Oh,
vitality101.com.
okay,
There's
okay.
no, you have the right website
Oh,
that you
okay.
gave. I actually have I hold a U.S. patent for computerized doctor. I made it many years ago for people with CFS and fibromyalgia, where people can go online, fill out a detailed history, even into the lab tests, and it would determine what the underlying contributing factors were in their case. So it's called the energy analysis program. It's a little more complex because it's a detailed assessment. It's funny, we used to charge 400 for that, but everybody wrote back and said, I'm on Medicaid, I can't afford. My wife and I decided to make it free to the public. So people can go and do that, and it will assess the key things in terms of what's needed for the sleep, which hormonal issues, what other infections may be going on, things like that. It'll assess all that and give a printout to say, here are the key things in your case. For supplements, I don't have the health information about diseases on the website with supplements because you're not allowed to do that. So for the supplements, the website is that's E and like Nancy, D like David, fatigue.com. And there's a PEA, which really helps to rebuild the body. The HRG 80 red ginseng, which a study that we published, I think, since the last show, showed that it increased energy over 60% and stamina almost 80%. Um, Quite dramatic in people who had, and these were in people who had more than a 50% decrease in function. And many of these
Mm,
people were housebound.
wow.
Um, there's a lot there. We pick whichever we think the best things are from all over the world, basically, for people to help optimize their energy, address discomfort, and the other things they need. And again, you feel free to email me directly for the information sheets on long COVID. And if you have specific issues like sensitivities or nerve pain, stuff like that, I can send you information sheets on those as well.
Oh, that's great. And you had mentioned, is it Vitality 101.com?
Vitality 101.1 vitality101.com is the
101.
information site. The app is called Cures, Cures,
Okay.
capital A dash Z, everything from acne to zoster. It's a free app. There's a $2 one-time upgrade. Most of the information is in the free app. It'll tell you what's going on with the condition and what I found is the best mix of natural and prescription options to treat it.
What would you tell somebody that doesn't understand a natural way versus a synthetic way? What is your kind of like protocol that you follow? For example, I always say natural first, and then if it doesn't work, then I look at pharmaceuticals or anything like that.
I do
What do you follow?
all of these are like a toolkit. And medicine, there's just a hammer and a saw. You use a hammer and a saw all the time for everything. Doesn't work, you use a bigger hammer and a bigger saw. That'll be the pharmaceuticals and the surgery. Um, but I like to use what's called comprehensive medicine. I'm not going to throw away the hammer and the saw, but I'm going to put in dozens of other tools. And there's times you need a screwdriver, times you need a wrench, sometimes you need a hex wrench, all kinds of different things you need. So I'm going to tailor it based on how effective, how safe, how affordable, and how accessible those treatments are. And that's what's going to determine it. Whether it's prescription or natural is not my issue. How safe and effective and affordable and accessible it is, those are my issues.
So, I like that. I like the way that you're looking at it, so that everybody can claim their solution. So can people call you for a consultation? What are you doing now?
I retired once I hit 70 after 50 years in medicine. Right now I'm teaching. So what I do is I put out information. I have a free newsletter, mostly for CFS and fibro folks, long COVID folks. Um, and I do give my email address. I don't take full medical histories and I don't charge because I'm retired. But if people have a question that's less than 100 words, I get to most of those. You know.
Yeah, we got to be brief, but say the most important things. What are some of the things that you need to know in order to respond to somebody? If you only have 100 words, what
Let
are
them pick. Let
you
them
got to
pick. They
pick?
they they know what comes up for them when they have to, you know, here's the gist of it, and they say it. That's better than my putting words in their mouth.
That's right. That's right. So you've been doing this for a while. So do
Mhm.
you have, because you've been doing a lot of research on COVID and fibromyalgia and also chronic pain for people that are going through um, all these, or that they say it's in your head, it's in your head. Do you have any stories that you can share about people that have maybe have had long COVID and have tried some of their, what did they try and how did they get better? Because I'm sure not everybody is going to use one solution. They might try different. How do you know which one is best for you?
So here's the overview first. S.H.I.N.E. If you want your checklist, your roadmap to recovery from this disease, think S.H.I.N.E. Optimize your sleep, address the hormonal deficiencies, thyroid, adrenal, and reproductive, even if the tests are normal. Address co-infections that come up, Epstein-Barr, even reactivated Lyme disease, Candida. Nutritional support, good multivitamin like Clinical Essentials, the ribose, and the coenzyme Q10. I use just the Terry Naturally Chewable CoQ10 because that has the gammasorb. That's what I take myself in the HRG 80 red ginseng and exercise as able. I then go with a low dose naltrexone and now the PEA to go ahead. So that's, you want to lay the foundations with the things. In terms of, we've treated over 3,000 people with it, and we often see, I don't want to go to, the only specific case I'll give is my own. In 1975, I was in medical school. I was paying my own way through. My dad was dead, so I was working as a nurse in Children's Hospital, paying my own way through and speeding through medical school because I finished college in 3 years because you pay less tuition that way. And I was kind of rolling through med school. All of that was the easiest part of my life. I got caught up as trying to be the peacemaker in an emotional family meltdown. That was the bigger stress. And I came down what I call the drop dead flu. It was a nasty viral syndrome. The blood test showed that there's a virus, but they couldn't identify it. 6 weeks later, I was still non-functional, and I had to drop out. I couldn't work. I had to drop out of medical school, and I was homeless, sleeping at parks. And the professor said, well, it's a virus that should be gone by now, and he must be depressed med student syndrome. That's what they said. And, you know, basically, I don't know what's wrong with you, so you're crazy. The usual thing that most of you have been getting. Um, for me, it was getting the nutritional support. I have a definite sweet tooth sugar addict. I was treating the adrenal issues and the candida issues. Um, those were, in my case, the critical things that helped me to recover so that I could go back to med school. And again, 1977, I've done 8 studies on effective treatment. I've written 3 textbook chapters, medical textbook chapters on these conditions. Um, so this has been my focus is post-viral chronic fatigue syndrome, which is what long COVID is. So the other thing that we didn't mention is POTS. You stand up and your pulse starts racing because your blood gravity sends blood to your legs and it stays there. If you ask for long COVID information, I'll send you a POTS information sheet, which will tell you how to do a home test, 2 home tests. It'll tell you, that are as effective as the $2,000 tilt table test, and then tell you how to treat it. It's not hard. Your doctor just is not educated in this. Well-meaning, but there's no expensive medication. So who is going to pay to teach them? Nobody.
It is so sad when I hear you say those things. Oh, and let me just finish the SHINE protocol, which is sleep, hormone, infections, and then I know it's nutrition and
Exercise as able,
exercise.
not
Yes.
this heavy exercise that kills people and causes their post-exertional malaise to knock them bedridden, but just enough to keep them from getting deconditioned. It's scary to exercise because you push. You figure, I'm going to go get myself, but I'm going to push and you're bedridden for 3 days, called post-exertional malaise, and you're afraid to do anything, which is
Mhm.
just as bad.
Yeah.
Just kind of see what you can comfortably do. After 8 weeks on S.H.I.N.E, your energy production will skyrocket, and then you'll have energy to condition instead of crashing.
So when you talked about the, what was that you were taking, um, I'm drawing a blank here. You were saying that did you start taking something, or how do you get sleep? How do you get sleep when you can't fall asleep? What do you do for that?
The sleep center, almond-sized area called the hypothalamus,
Mhm.
is what goes offline first, along with the immune system and energy production in this disease. So the sleep center is not working. You need stuff for sleeping. I start with melatonin. It needs to be sustained release unless you don't wake up at 2 in the morning, along with everybody else with this disease. I use one called EP120, sustained release melatonin, 10 milligram tablets. Need a sustained release, so it's going all night. I will do a mix of herbs called the Revitalizing Sleep Formula, sometimes terrific Z's, which are essential oils. I will then add in, and you can use chamomile tea, but don't use tea bags, which is tea dust. Use the whole buds for the chamomile. Then I'm going to go to medications, very low dose trazodone, like 25 to 50 milligrams, Flexeril, 2.5 to 5 milligrams, gabapentin, 100 to 300, just tiny doses of several things together. So you don't get the side effects, you're not hungover the next day. And I will then add in the medications in low dose so that you can go ahead and get your 8 hours sleep a night. You'll be amazed how much the pain goes away, the brain fog improves, and energy improves just by getting your sleep.
So are you saying all of that at the same time? So
Yes,
taking, or do you
yes,
start with the
one at a time. I
one
start
at a
with the
time?
EP120 melatonin.
Mhm.
I then add in the revitalizing sleep formula. I may add in terrific Z's. I'll then tend to go with, if they have pain, I'll go with gabapentin, low dose, and maybe some Flexeril or trazodone. It
Yeah.
depends person to person.
But
But
if
those
at
are the starting things. There's over
those are
30 things for sleep.
Yeah, so but if at any time one of those things works, then stay with that. You're not going to continue to add.
Once you have your 8 hours of solid sleep and you feel rested, you've got a pat hand.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Something
great.
doesn't feel good, you drop it. You're
So
trying on shoes.
before we go, because we only have about 4 minutes left before this is thank you so much. This has been so interesting for me, especially new news. There's a lot of people out there still, believing the same way did in 2020, but to have something new and different is invaluable. What key do emotions play in all of this? I know that you said, they just sent me home saying, oh, you got this, medical school post-traumatic syndrome or whatever, some diagnosis where maybe there's something trapped inside. What would you say about emotions and how it plays a role in
Want the mind
illness?
body part in detail? I'm going to cut into this because we have 2 minutes left. Get my book from Fatigue's fantastic. In addition, that's for long. That's the textbook. The
Yeah.
book You Can Heal from Long COVID is a short and sweet version. But for the depth of the mind body, we talk about basic mind body, which is following your bliss. This is a disease of people pleasers who
Hmm.
take care of everybody but themselves. Every energy vampire in town comes and hits on them. So learning to say no to things that feel bad is the start. But you also see a lot of people with PTSD and sexual abuse and other traumas. And the Fatigued Fantastic book talks about how to use different layers of different energy techniques and other techniques to clear the PTSD, to clear the emotional issues, to clear the trauma. Because talk therapy takes you about 10% of the way. And then you've got to do the other techniques for clearing the muscle memory, which simply trembling can work. And then clearing the energy trapped in the brain, basically. I know it's an oversimplification with some of the tapping and other techniques, somatic relief. So this book goes through a very detailed step by step for the mind body as well. But
And
start by learning
you
to say no to things that feel bad
That's right, and without guilt, without
without
guilt.
guilt.
I
Without
was
guilt.
just talking to someone just recently, and I was saying, "I don't do anything in guilt,"
Mhm.
and, we were raised to do things out of guilt, and so it's like I've just learned to do things because I want to do them, and
Yep.
and even if I don't wanna do it, because it's helpful, and I know that it will help somebody, I will do it, but only
I
so
won't.
that they can help themselves. Once
If
that,
it if
if it
if it
doesn't
doesn't
affect
feel good,
me, yeah, if it
if it
doesn't
doesn't
affect me.
feel good, I won't do it.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
If I don't have one feeling or another, I will do it just to help them
Okay.
get started. But if they keep coming back and they keep coming back, then that's when I say no. Because, we all need to be self-cleaning ovens. We can't rely on somebody else to clean your oven. You've got to be a self-cleaning oven. That's why I started doing my workshops too, because it's so important that we be aware that some of these traumas do play a key role, and we need to address them as well. It's nice to take, pills and things like that, but it's not going to address the trauma. So I really appreciate you addressing that and making sure that we all understand that this is a spirit, mind, and body way of healing. So thank you so much, Dr. Teitelbaum. Once again, you can go to there's Vitality 101.com, so you can take that test. We also, there's an app for Dr. Teitelbaum called Cures A to Z, and that's an app that you can get that will help you. It's worth getting the $2, upgrading to $2 instead of getting it for free. And then there's also endfatigue.com, which will show you some of the recommendations for Dr. Teitelbaum. And one last but not least, if you want information for today's class, Dr. Teitelbaum will have, he's going to be sending that to me. You can either get it from me or you can get it from him, but keep your emails to him down to 100 words so that you have a greater chance in him responding to you. Did I get that okay? Did I say
Yeah,
that
you
okay?
did brilliant.
I didn't even use the word cancer. Okay, so I am just so grateful to you, Dr. Teitelbaum, for everything that you do. I want to thank you for that, and for us to give us the power back, for us to take our power back so that we can be the change that we want to see in the world. So thank you so much for that. And please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Dr. Jacob Teitelbaum, MD, wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day
Ever.
ever. I love your evers. Those are the best. Thank you.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.